is not going to like me.
Picked a naughty piece again.
Always going there.
Push it out to people.
Oh, are they good?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. All right, so we were already ready. I was panicking for nothing. Put that bottle of glue up. Tip up. Thank you. The glue will pour out into the tip and you'll never get it off.
Yeah, tip up. We like that.
Tips up.
Tips up.
There you go, Pops.
We got my dad on the pod. Welcome to the man cave.
Thank you very much. It's a beautiful man cave. I wish it were mine.
Thank you. It is the highlight of the place for sure.
I'll intro my dad real quick. This is my dad, Scott. We just got back off an epic bear hunt that we'll get into, but he's been my lifelong dad my whole life.
The whole time.
Magical. He's been a great dad, hard worker, plumber, pipe fitter by trade, 35 years, yeah. All around handyman, doesn't stop working all day long, and we just came off a great trip, man. So
can't wait to hear about it because you've told me nothing, and I know
this
nothing.
is my dad, Scott. Yeah, that's part of the problem with having a podcast now. Is it's like, wait.
Well, let's not talk about anything for a week.
Don't share.
And then let's just boil it all out over an hour.
Don't share. Let's save it for the podcast.
Problem is, we forget half of the crap that happens.
I know.
You're not talking about it.
Do you want? Do you want to talk about Reading?
Not really.
Not really.
I should.
Yeah.
I should. First and foremost, I did get approached by a lot of people, and I didn't expect that from the target community, but I was wrong. There's a lot of people that are also paying attention to the channel and had good positive things to say, and had a lot of positives about liking the podcast, which is cool. I had multiple equipment issues and did terrible, but I had a good time, and that was what mattered, and that was the whole point of it. Our group, I think we made it like 15 minutes in, and at least 2 guys had nicknames, and we were all jaw-jacking and screwing off and having a good time the entire time. And
the
all the guys that were in the group were
the
like,
tournament
this is the
you're
most
referring
fun I've
to
ever
is
had.
Reading.
Yeah, it's
the world's largest.
It's the Western Trail Classic is what it's called.
World's largest 3D, though?
In the West. It's
largest 3D tournament in the West?
Largest outdoor tournament in the West, or at least it was at one point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still is. I'm assuming it is. But yeah, that was the deal.
Yeah. And it's pretty binary. You either hit a orange dot or you hit a secondary circle.
Yeah.
Or none of it, right?
Oh, no, there's a body.
Okay.
So it's
break
11,
those points
11 10, 8. So there's an orange dot that's actually painted on the target. So it's a safari-style shoot. So that's under the NFAA platform, or National Field Archery Association, and there's an orange dot on the target, and then there's a line around that's considered the 10, and then anywhere else typically is an 8. In general, there are targets that only have a 10 or an 11. They have all kinds of different shot angles, stuff that'll screw you up, like it's designed to screw you up, like, a 3-yard shot, a 4-yard shot, a 5-yard shot, that if you haven't actually gone and done them and checked and made a little cheat sheet, you'll drop points where you shouldn't because it's plenty close enough to you. And there's a ton of uphill, downhill, and side hill stuff that if your axes aren't set right and everything isn't just perfect, it'll tear you apart. That's what it's designed for. You'll drop points really bad. And in the warm up round, we got there a day early because I had gone before, long time ago, like 18 years ago, and didn't have a pre-day because the pressure is different, the temperature is different, everything down there is different, so you impact different. So you have to be able to go down and recheck your marks before you start shooting and make sure they're set right. And I was low, like at everything. I was like, oh, that's weird. Whatever, I guess I'll just put new marks in. So I duplicated my data chart, made a new data chart, set it all in, and then we went to our warm-up round. We had a pre-scheduled, you paid for it, to go shoot like 15 targets. So you're shooting dots and doing the thing and working your way around the course, which was very good that we had that. Because I think I made it 5 targets in and went down and touched my rest, and my rest was like rotating. And my dumbass, if you're on a Hamsky Epsilon, there's in a universal bracket, there's a plate underneath the back of it that you screw on, and I neglected to tighten it down really good. So I bet you I put about 200 total arrows through that bow before that came loose on me. And so I shot an arrow into the target and was like way the hell off, and I started grabbing my bow like there's no way. I wasn't anywhere near that when it went off, and rest was loose. So I jumped up, I ran up to the next target, just yelled down, pull my arrow, didn't shoot my second arrow, ran up there, unbolted my rest off the side of the bow.
Oh God!
Because you can't tighten those screws without taking the mounting bolt off. So I had to dismount the entire rest, tighten that down. I actually tore the rest apart and then realized the screws were the other direction. I was like, shit. pulled the whole rest off the bow, tightened it back down, bolted it back together, slapped it back on, walked up to the target using my old marks, and I'm high all of a sudden. Imagine that. So went back to my original marks, still had issues, ended up going back to the practice range at like 6:30, 7 o'clock that night, just to try to check my stuff. My left rights were off a little bit. But I got it as close as I could. And then started the first scoring day, and I was using pro comps and for arrows, and I got like 5 targets in, and my new buddy John wasn't paying attention, kicked my bow over, and it landed right on the scope rod. And so I go up to the next target, and I'm like at 40 yards, I'm like this far left. I'm like, oh God, and we're 2 shots from Bigfoot, which is 101 yards. Mm-hmm. And if you know where Bigfoot is, the practice range is right across the street from where Bigfoot is. And there's usually a big line at Bigfoot. So we get up there, and there's a concession stand. They cook burgers and hot dogs and whatnot there. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, there sure seems like there's a lot of people here. And I look over at the practice range, and no one's on the practice range. And my mind's going, I could run over there, go out to 100, move my left to right to where I hit it 100 again, and then run back over and probably still make it. And I looked about it, thought about it, and saw how fast the line was moving. And I'm like, screw it, order me a burger, walked over to my sight and just went, hope for the best. Hit him on the first shot, too. Nice. That's pretty cool. Nice. And then I think I made it about 5 more targets or 6 more targets. And I kept seeing arrow flight that looked weird. But I was trying to dismiss the equipment errors because that's what I tell people to do. I was like, ignore your equipment. It's you, it's not your equipment. Right? And we get back to the house that night and go in and start checking my arrows for straightness, and I've got 2 bent arrows already because they're an aluminum core arrow. And the targets were exceptionally hard to pull, like really, really hard. I don't know, like you'd get to one target and your arrow would fall out of it, and the next one it was like you need 2 guys and grippers and trying to pull it out. And I'm like, I'm not even shooting that much weight. It was kind of odd. So at least 2 got bent that day. I only went down there with 9. I finished. I had to do arrow repairs each night. And I finished with 3 functioning arrows, and you have to shoot 2. And by the 3rd day, I thought I had set my 3rd axis, and I must have forgot because as soon as I was shooting up hills and downhills, it was like first left to right. Hence I've usually been able to kind of sneak my way through fixing stuff on the fly, and it works out fine, and it didn't work out fine at all. Like I would shoot my first arrow, and then I would hold off that far and shoot my second arrow and hit the dot. I was holding great. Shots were breaking great. Everything was awesome as far as my own mental capacity through it. I didn't freak out. I didn't panic. I was like, it's all good. No worries. I was able to keep calm in a high-stress environment and not anticipate anything, not like start shaking ever. I just stayed calm the whole time. So I'm very confident that when I go to another tournament with my equipment right, I will shoot very well. Because if I can get through that, somewhat of a shit show and not mentally just break down, I don't think I'm.
So that was Murphy's Law at its best, right?
It caught me. Like I've done if anybody who really knows me well, I'm frequently like putting my hunting bow together 3 days before
you're
I gotta
doing
go hunting.
shit on the fly. Yeah.
Well, I'm in great example. I'm supposed to go bear hunting on Saturday, and I've had to pull my arrows off the counter here where I was fletching before I went up to the property day before yesterday, and I've still got a few more to fletch. I got to cut them down, insert them, put some broadheads in, shoot broadheads tomorrow, and I'm leaving Saturday. It's Thursday. So, and I apparently I didn't really learn my lesson very well on that one.
But in all fairness, you were going to this event like, hey, this is an experience.
Yeah, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to going back to something that I really enjoyed from a long time ago, and I didn't care how I was going to shoot. I didn't care what my score was going to be. I would have much rather, put up a better score. Like, second day I got 2 targets in or 3 targets in a monsoon, by the way. It was raining so hard. I can't, Bodie won. And dude, he didn't drop an arrow on the second day. I was like, it was like, I'd never shot in that much rain in my life. Yeah. And I'm 43.
Bodie Turner is so impressive.
Yeah.
Josh is referring to Bodie Turner. He won Reading this year. I was rooting for him.
It was his first win at Reading.
He hadn't had an outdoor win like that. Mm-mm. Yeah. But
not that scale. He's won smaller though.
Yeah. And he's won indoor stuff. He's won so much of our big stuff. And is he 16 now?
I think he's actually 16 now.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
16.
And he had dropped a point on the first day, and he dropped a point on a 3-yard target on the 3rd day. He was so mad.
Yeah.
One of those simple ones I said, as long as you know you're fine.
Yeah.
I don't think he still knows how the hell he did it. But yeah, he dropped 2 points. I think he was in first by 2.
So
extra.
Bodie Turner, son of Joel Turner.
Yeah. Which Joel was in the lead for his class
I
on
was
the third
when
day.
I
And it
saw
fell
that, I was
apart.
rooting for
it's
Joel.
like, what about this mental capacity, Joel? I thought you were Mr. Mental. Come on.
Yeah. But that's why you put yourself in those situations, right? That's the best concentration practice there is.
100%. Yeah. No, that's great. And like I said, I had a great time, and I was more going down there to try to see the kind of response I was going to get from it, to see if it was relevant, to try to put a little more focus on target equipment as far as my reviews and things are concerned, because I've kind of glossed over a lot of that, not paid it a lot of attention, and the feedback that I got was like, okay, I probably need to do more target stuff on my channel. So that was really where I was going, and to go with some of my boys that had worked for me in the past that are like sons to me. I had 3 of them that were going. One of them ended up not being able to go, but I was looking forward to just spending time with them. You know, I got a picture of Josh and Justin in the truck on the way home, both sawing logs while I'm driving. Felt like an old dad.
Some people aren't cut out for life on the road. Hey?
They were comfy, man. That truck's pretty comfortable, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, after Reading, do you feel like the competitive fire got ignited?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to really get better about schedules. Like I really am. The things that I have to do.
Yeah.
Dude, trying to fit everything. It was like today, just trying to. When are we doing this, and what do I got going, and what do I got to try to get done? I was like, you got to get here before here, or we're gonna be in trouble. Like we need to get here. I have too much on my plate, and I need to start doing a better job of delegating it. And hopefully, with the new hires and whatnot we got at the shop, I should be able to step away a little more and maybe try to dedicate a certain amount of hours a week to practice, like I need to. But yeah, I enjoy that environment because it doesn't bother me. Like it just doesn't. I don't know why. I mean, maybe I don't care, or maybe I just don't feel the pressure like most people do. But I pretty much remain calm.
Yeah, and pressure's a good thing too, right? Pressure means you care.
Yeah.
And pressure can make your performance worse or better. A lot of people, it'll make it worse. Some people do rise up.
Oh, I
And,
had a vein come off on the second day, like 3 arrows in, and missed the whole target.
Probably because that sharp helical you're shooting, huh?
Probably because I didn't check anything. I like glued everything on. I
Probably 'cause
didn't
you
even
glued 'em
pull
on
on
the
my
trip
veins
down?
to make sure they were on. Like,
Because they got glued on the trip down.
no, they got glued on like 3 days before. Yeah, but I never checked them. Just like I never checked my rest, and that won't happen again.
Well, I think if it's something you want to do, it'd be cool content too. You know, if you want to share a little bit. I mean, just even talking about it right now, it's fun. It's a different level of preparation. It's a different crowd. I mean, even the best local archers aren't the ones that are going to be competing at this kind of stuff. So it's a whole, like that whole, there's levels to this game thing. Those are the people, right? Those are.
Yeah, the nice thing about Target is it'll take somebody who's a seasonal archer and turn them into year-round archer. And that's who most of those people are.
Yeah.
They're ones that just want to do it all year, so they find the different disciplines that are available depending on the time of year.
Yeah, I think Grimes might be more into target archery than hunting.
He is. He's still really into hunting. He loves hunting elk.
I know, yeah.
But he bleeds for it. He loves target archery.
And I know he said he didn't shoot the goal score he wanted, but it was also his best Reading score.
It was his best Reading score,
So-
and he should have.
Good job, Justin.
He was right there.
Yeah, good job.
He was right there, and that was an example of a mental failure right at the end. He couldn't keep it together.
But that's how you get
But,
better at that, is you put yourself in those situations.
His buddy, my new buddy John, he beat his goal by 12, which was really good. Like,
Was John the high guy in your
Rugen.
group?
Yeah, he was the high guy in our group.
That's cool.
And he was, jaw jacking and screwing around with everybody else, wasn't taking it super serious, but still had his goals, and being able to stay loose and, enjoy it and laughing and whatnot, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Get all uptight and everybody starts getting nervous. Your heart rate goes up, your muscles get tight. It's just not the same thing.
My dad's been around the game for a while, archery, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the old bows you used to shoot?
Bear 55-pound recurve back in 1976.
Was that when you started?
That was when that was my first deer. Yep.
And you started with just a recurve?
Just a recurve, fingers. That was it.
And were you aiming with the tip of the arrow?
I was. Yep. Yep.
So gap shooting.
Call it what you want.
Yeah.
I've never heard it called gap shooting, but
So-
I didn't even believe in using sights for years and years. I mean, I used a recurve until the compounds come out, and then I went to, I think the first one was a Bear Polar LTD with magnesium limbs and stuff, and I pretty much just hunted during the late season because I was too busy in the fall to get the early season in.
Sure.
And it was just torture with that magnesium.
Gotcha.
But I found a way of keeping warm and keeping the bow warm, and I hunted usually right till the end of season, which was somewhere the end of December, beginning of January.
Gotcha. And where you're from, that's really cold. It's cold here, but that's really cold.
Yeah. And I didn't realize just how bad it was. I mean, I found out that I needed some alternative way of staying warm, and I would get up in we call it a permanent blind now, and I found that I would put a sleeping bag or something over my legs, and I had a 1-burner Coleman stove burning, right? And I was concerned that the deer were hearing the of the Coleman stove, and also my scent of the stove, right?
Sure.
And so I come up with this idea, and I think it was a good idea at the time, but I was boiling apples in a pan.
That's a great idea.
And so
that sounds awesome.
Have you heard anyone do that?
No.
Yeah.
So every night or afternoon when I'd go out there, I just left the pan there, left the burner there. I was hunting public property or whatever, and I'd just go there and it'd be frozen by the time, it started boiling. I mean, it literally was steaming and it'd roll out from the thing, but I could keep a little, a little opening right there by my crotch, and the steam would come up, warm my hands, and
nice.
And
do you remember when you were using, what were you pointing the arrow at 20 yards to hit where you wanted? Do you remember?
I don't remember. The biggest challenge to me was I could hit the target, but I wasn't doing good at the deer, and I realized that I had to. The way it was, I remember looking at the tip of the arrow in relation to the deer, and it was like 3 or 4 inches below the deer and to the right of the deer, and that was dead on at the kill zone.
And that would be called gap shooting because you're holding a gap away from where you want to hit.
Absolutely.
So that's gap.
Absolutely.
Did you ever change your anchor point on your face, or was it always the same?
Yeah, I would say it was always the same, pretty much.
There's like 3 different styles of traditional shooting. There's face walking, string walking, and gap shooting.
Yeah.
And with face walking, you also gap shoot. So you just have different anchors on your face for closer and farther away.
Mine was always pretty much the same spot,
Yeah.
But I was just resistant, call it stubbornness, call it whatever. But once I went to using sights, it was like night and day.
Like, oh, this is so much easier.
Night and day,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Who did you get the idea to archery hunt from? Because at that time, no one was really doing it.
No, a friend of mine was bow hunting, Charlie Olson.
When I started archery hunting in Michigan, not that many people were doing it. And you did it 30 years prior to that, so it must have been next to nobody, right?
No, there was probably a handful of us in the county, and one of them was another friend of mine's dad. And I was, when I started bear hunting, I jacked my pressure, my poundage up to like 72. That was the max I could get, right? And I went to this guy's house and I saw this recurve sitting there, and I went, hey, I said, nice bow, I said, could I pull it, could I lift it? And he kind of looked at me and says, yeah, go ahead. I pulled it all right, and I pulled it, and I drew it back, and I didn't dry fire it, and I let it back, and his eyeballs got like huge, and he says, you're the first person other than me that could pull that bow. And I said, why, what is it? And he was 85-pound recurve.
That's a lot.
And he was a big guy, but I was shooting a lot and stuff like that. But it was Charlie Olson. In fact, I went to visit this friend, and he was practicing. And I said, mind if I try? And he goes, no, go ahead. Well, I shot, I don't know, I'm guessing right now it was like 30, 35 yards with his bow, and I hit a paper plate. And he said, have you shot before? I said, no. He said, I think you better start hunting with the bow, he says, because I have a hard time hitting a plate, and I've been shooting.
There you go.
And so that prompted me to start hunting with the bow.
Now, fast forward, you have kind of a bum wing, kind of a bum shoulder.
Might have been the 85 pounds.
Two rotator surgeries, yeah.
Yeah, or just years of manual labor and that kind of thing, hard on your shoulders. So you used a crossbow on our Canada trip.
Yes.
Yeah. So Canada, if we're just to start from the beginning, started as something we were all planning to do like 6 months ago, going to get a group up. Briefly, Dan and I separated from doing YouTube together. And the outfitter was still like, hey, I would love for you to come up. I'm flexible if you can make it work. And I was like, yeah, I would love to come up. It was an adventure hunt I was excited to do. And the bonus of that was like, hey, now I could get my dad to come because I had a spot. So you said, hey, I'll come, right? And then you got out here. We headed north. And so what were you expecting on the way up? Or tell them about the drive up.
Well, the drive up, Tim told me it was 10 hours, and I thought he was full of bullshit, I thought, sure it is, and it punched it into maps, and it says it's 9 3/4 hours, and I'm like, shit. He's telling the truth here. And but the good part was, I guess, the Canadian highway is good. It just kind of sore on the hind end on the way. But other than that, it was pretty much what I expected, except, when we go through the Rockies, of course, it's beautiful, beautiful terrain, and we don't have any mountains like that back in Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula, the highest mountain we have.
Canadian Rockies are like world class.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. In the photo world, there's a few people I followed that. Well, I've seen their photos from the Canadian Rockies, and it's like one of the most well photographed places in North America. It's freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope the weather's okay and you get to see them when you go. Yeah.
Assuming my passport actually shows up. I've
It'll
got like another day.
Josh is still on the line if he's going to make it up. Or not. I hope you do.
Yeah,
I really hope you do.
I
Well,
think
it didn't even say approved until
Yeah.
Tuesday or Monday or something like that. I think it was Monday, but I logged on Monday and it said it was actually approved, and I should see it by on or around the 17th, and today's the 18th.
Well, the drive up was gorgeous. We saw sheep. I don't think the Canadian Rockies might be one of the most beautiful places in North America. And we had a fun time at the border. We didn't get through the border cleanly.
No, what happened?
Just
First, my son says, don't say a word. Don't say one word. Just let me do the talking. And I'm
okay. And to prove that, he's good because that's what he used to say when we go through the border. So I was more messing with him than anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So we got up to the border. They asked the standard questions. The guy seemed pretty straightforward. He put a little yellow sheet of paper in my passport and he said, pull forward to the left and go inside. And then we went inside and the attendant there asked a few questions. He was just curious about, how we met the outfitter and what the hunt was going to cost. And he asked a handful of questions and he's like, well, and we're going to go search your vehicle. So I would say after the search that he was stern but also fair. He wasn't rifling through stuff, being an asshole about it, but he was doing his job and handed us our passports after that and said, okay, you guys are good to go. So that was probably like a 45-minute or an hour stop.
After he called the outfitter to make sure that we were really coming.
Yeah. So whatever. But we got through there, and I knew after some volume of border crossings, you're going to have one that's going to be something like that. And
Sure.
That was our border crossing. That was a little funky. And but then after that, we got up to the spot and met our outfitter Brian. Brian's cool. I didn't know it was it's his first formal year outfitting up there.
Oh, right on.
So this is his first year. They got a little family outfit. He had a really good setup. Kind of mobile camp, a bunch of what would you call those, wall tents, like mini wall tents we slept in on cots. It was comfortable, big tent that they cook the meals in, and a variety of bait sites within probably a 10 or 15 mile radius of camp. And what happened from there, Pop?
Well, and the nice thing is that the sites that he has are mobile. I mean, mobile meaning, he could move the blind. He took all the blinds down every night because the bears would get to him. Yeah. Right. So from there, I guess first night I sat, and then I had a bear come in, and they had beavers strung up, and the bear was in for quite a while. And I had decided that it was just a hair too small to shoot. He had a 55-gallon drum and a 30-gallon drum, and he said, to go off of this site, this would be average or better. And if it's up this high, that's a better bear. And it was just a little bit small, but the bear was in there forever. I mean, it ended up being a total of like an hour and a half. But climbed the tree, reaching for the beaver. It was like a gymnast up on the pole trying to reach a beaver 3 different times. And then after the third time, he got pissed because he couldn't reach it, and he jumped like from 4 feet down, and he kind of shook himself. And then he walked over to this limb, and he was kind of scratching himself. And all of a sudden he looked like this, and his leg went down. He kind of just rolled off of this log he was sitting on, and his nose went up in the air, and his upper lip curled. And I'm like, what the hell, and all of a sudden he starts coming towards me, and I'm like, shit, here he comes. And he's only 22 yards to start with, 20 at the most. And I was, and my son says, make sure you get it on video, try and get some video or whatever, so I didn't have a tripod. So I have my camera there, and this bear is coming, and his nose is wrinkling, and he's taking a step after step after step, and he gets like 10 yards away, and I'm like, shit. The video goes blank, it goes on to black, and all of a sudden he keeps coming, and I'm reaching down for the crossbow, right? Because I was videoing, and I grabbed the crossbow, and I'm like, son of a bitch, he's coming in, and he gets from me to you away, 5 feet away. And I have the crossbow at hip, and I meant one more step, and all of a sudden he lifts his upper lip, and he's like, shit, that's human smell. He just turned and walked away, and he went right back to the bait, and he ate at the bait. And I mean, it was awesome the first night. And I ended up, I think the first night I hunted till like 9 o'clock, and there was still plenty of light left. And I thought the outfitter was out there waiting for me. And he said, no, I could have stayed another hour. But, so that was that. And then the second night I didn't see anything. And, third night we went out there, set up. And I didn't like it too much. I guess I didn't have much confidence because the bear had been early in the morning, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were there at, 4 o'clock? And anyway, so I thought, well, how many times is he going to come in to eat, right? And at about 25 after 5, there he showed up. And he gave me one broadside shot, and I didn't take it because he was moving. 20-yard shot, and he walked around the back of the barrels, and little did I know there was a bunch of bait that was down on the ground, and he was eating the bear. He was a lazy bear. He'd sit down on his haunches, and he would just scoop and he'd lift up, and he was going back and forth, and then he went out once or twice. And I'm not a patient hunter. I mean,
that's what I was going to say on the first night. Like, I was very, very proud and surprised to hear he had passed on a bear.
Yeah, that's
very rare.
I'm a meat person. I don't count points if it's legal,
Yep.
And the bear, I mean, I looked at it many times through the scope, and I put the scope up, and I said, man, that's a perfect place for a shot, and no, I can't do it. And I thought many times about shooting that first one, and I didn't. And so the second one come in, and I looked at it, and it was there for so long. It was like, I looked at his skull at a shot, and I thought, would the broadhead penetrate the skull? And I'm like, don't be
that guy.
Don't be that guy. That's exactly right. And then it lift its head up, and I'd look at the two shoulders, and I went, man, I'll just drive it right through the shoulder and into the heart and into the liver, and then I thought, man, Brian will be pissed if I wound him,
Yeah.
because I did sight in the crossbow. It was supposed to be sighted when I got it, but it was 6 inches high and 3 inches to the left. And when I left camp the first night, I mean, I was confident I could have shot like a silver dollar.
Sure.
So these other things of the chest and the brain and the skull and all of this, and I just kept saying, don't do it, and I did have Tim's tripod, and it was set up, and make sure you get a video, so about halfway through, all of a sudden my phone lost memory, too much, and the bear is in, and the crossbow's down, and I'm videoing, and I'm like, shit, so here I am trying to erase stuff so I can got memory, right? So I erased a bunch of apps and you name it, and I erased it, and I punched it back in, and it started, and so anyway, then finally he was laying down, and he stood up, and he started walking, and I think it was about a 22-yard shot, and I had reset the camera from the right side over to the left side because it was more accessible, and as soon as I pulled the trigger on the crossbow, I looked at the camera, and I physically saw the arrow going, and I heard "tuk," and I looked at it and I went, yeah, that's a nice shot. And he ran about, I don't know, maybe 10 yards, maybe not even that. And he stood, and he kind of reached up between the tree, and it's kind of like something happened here, you know?
Yeah.
And he just kind of walked off, and I was going to go and see where he was. And Brian said, just sit tight, you know? And I texted the outfitter, and I said, I got him. And he said, stay put. And I'm like, yeah, well, this isn't going to happen. No, I'm going to stay put. Who knows? So I did everything. I took the blind down. I did this, I did that. And finally I said, I got to go look. So I walked over, and my bolt was like 10, 15 feet beyond where I shot him. And it was in the inside of a bear
beaver carcass.
rib cage.
Beaver carcass.
Beaver carcass, I mean.
Yeah.
Beaver carcass. So I pulled it out, and I looked at it, and two of the blades looked like they hadn't opened because they were back, and one was, deployed.
Yeah.
So then when Brian and Tim came, and I said, I don't know what kind of a shot I got, and Tim said, well, did you pull it through anything? And I said, yeah. And he said, probably when you pulled it,
Shots him.
So anyway, then me and the outfitter are walking, and we didn't even go 5 feet, and we both looked and saw a black spot, and the bear was there. And then so after we skinned it, all three blades deployed. Was a good shot. I ended up in the liver, and it didn't go very far. But it was. I told Tim I've been hunting for a long time now, and this is probably the most adrenaline hyped excitement I've had in a long time. But to say that it took an hour and a half to shoot this thing, it calmed me down after about the first 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Other than me looking at shooting in it in its head and its chest and its front.
You can only be pumping that hard adrenaline for so long before your body just stops.
Right.
And it's like,
but it was
there's none left.
no. And so it was a very good hunt.
So we got it back to camp, skinned it up. Brian helped skin it up. I got the quarters off. I got the meat off of it. And you're like, hey, I want to get these bear ribs. Let's use the bear ribs. So talk about your recipe for bear ribs really quick.
So, well, Brian had said he never does bear ribs, and he didn't care for bear ribs, but the way he had skinned it was, I call it the field skin, where you don't go into the guts. You just get all the quarters, get all the meat.
Gutless.
Yeah, gutless.
Yep.
And so I started doing that about 3 years ago with deer. So anyway, he did that, and then he gutted it, and we got the ribs and stuff. And I told him, well, before you cut the ribs, he had a handsaw. I said, before you cut the ribs off, take the first half off, while it's on the animal, so it's easier to hold. And he did that, and then we got the second half. And the bear rib recipe truly is pretty simple. I cut them like short ribs, 3-4 inches, whatever, and soak them in salt water for the night to get the blood out of it as much as you can. And then rinse the salt water off, and then it's just I parboil them. And what I never realized this till this time, because I've eaten them quite a few times, but you could tell when the bear ribs are done on the parboiling, because they're actually pretty wide, when you take them off at whole. But when they're done parboiling, they maybe are like a quarter of an inch. I mean,
the ribs shrink up.
They just shrink right up, and so they were all in pieces. And I parboiled it till I saw that, and I went to take them off, and there was a couple of them that didn't get cut at the 4-inch mark. They were probably 6 or 8 inches, so I wanted to take those off to put on the grill. Right. And I took the rib, and I just literally just slid it right off. And it was so tender, it was unbelievable. So then we put them on the grill, and because early on I said, I want bear ribs at the beginning. Well, Tim field dressed his, and then there was another guy at camp that didn't keep the ribs. So my ribs were the only ones there, and there's 12 of us to eat. So we each got like 3 ribs or so, 4 ribs.
Like an appetizer.
Yeah. Like an appetizer. But barbecued them on the grill and just let the caramelized barbecue sauce. It's a homemade recipe, which I gave to everybody up there. And I said, it's simple to make. And they turned out, they were break apart. And Brian says, well, you caused me more work now. He says, because I'll never throw bear ribs away again.
Yeah.
And they were very good.
Anyway, there was 10 or 12 people that had them, and everyone loved them, dude. And they were so good.
Yeah.
So tender, so much more tender than any beef ribs I've had, for sure. And they were the bomb. It was one of those things where everybody wanted the recipe, and no one's like, I'm throwing bear ribs again away.
Yeah.
So my takeaway is if I'm not, in a shithole on a mountainside, and I can get the bear ribs off, the bear ribs are definitely coming with me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, they're really good, dude. Yeah. So you got your bear, we got the bear ribs, those are the bomb. I was able to get connected with my bear on the second night. Brian was pretty stoked. We had these bears started daylighting very regularly, like a day or two prior to me showing up. There was one bigger bear. We thought it was a sow, big rear end. On the trail camera, it looked huge. There was one or two photos that just made it look huge. And so my second day, we kind of spritzed up the bait, got some scent out. The guides left me in there, and kind of read the playbook. Came in like an hour later. It was right at 3 p.m. Bear came in, was kind of pacing a little bit before it really wanted to commit, and then committed, and it got up on its haunches, like slapped the beaver with, like standing, finally settled down, put its head down, and I had a pretty broadside shot, and I went middle to middle and with the Grimreaper Micro Hybrid. Made a good clean shot, middle to middle, looked good, got good footage. The bear kind of did a U-turn, came back, looked a little dazed, kind of sauntered off to the hillside, and I thought that's where it passed. And I gave it a little bit, and sure enough, that's where it passed. So, yeah, man, it was just that might be the first hunt I've ever had that went to playbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, like went how it should have went. I was the first one in camp to tag out, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and Brian did an excellent job. I wasn't going to keep my hide, because I have one on the wall, and I just said I'm not taking it across. And Brian, he fleshed, when he skinned it out, it was clean, and
I did it like a surgeon.
Yeah.
On the table, yeah.
Yeah, and I learned how he did it, and I'm going to try and do even the deer. The deer is completely different than the bear. The bear is tight, but he said, you can't leave this. You literally, the hide, it was just thick. There was not any rub marks. There was
beautiful.
Nothing.
Yeah, beautiful.
And probably 3 to 4 inches high.
Wow.
And so he talked me into just getting it caped out and get it in tan. And so I left it up there with him rather than try and take it across. And they're going to use their taxidermist, talk to her. And she said, yeah, she could do it. And then there's a 15% discount if you're going through Twin Valley Outfitters. So he said, well, you can come and get it next year when you come here. And I said, well, we'll see. Just make sure it gets done and let me know,
But this is an archery podcast, actually. And we got a Broadhead report, dude.
All right.
So we got Grimreaper Micro Hybrid 125s. You shot the
flat steel.
Fatal Steel 125s out of a crossbow bolt. And then our third archer in camp, his name was Nick Cody. And Nick shot a SEVR 2.0, which was also high on my list of things I wanted to try and see. So we'll start with mine. Grimreaper Micro Hybrid, middle to middle on the bear. I got a good diamond cut on both sides. I didn't get a lot of blood, but nobody got a lot of blood. Our bears didn't go that far, and their coats were super thick.
Yeah.
But it was an effective shot. I basically hit the autopsies like back of the lungs. Bear was 40 yards from point of entrance, and then I had, my diamond size hole was probably a little bigger than this if you included the diamond in each side of the coat and the hide. My dad's Fatal Steel triangle hole, again, passed through with a lot of energy. Mine passed through with a lot of energy too. It went through like a lot of energy, dude. Like went 10 yards past the bear and was stuffed into something.
Yeah.
So my takeaway from that was like no shortage of energy there. I could have went wider, I could have went thicker or whatever.
Sure. Could have shot like something with 8 blades on it.
Yeah, my dad's arrow with the crossbow bolt. And can you tell me this? Is a crossbow bolt passing through at 20 yards with more or less energy than a compound? Do you know?
I know what the kinetic energy would say.
What would it say?
Yeah.
Kinetic energy would say yes, because it's about 400 grains.
Yeah.
And the velocity's higher.
Yeah.
But I think it stores energy differently. I've never watched a crossbow bolt in, like 10,000 frames a second. I don't know if a crossbow bolt flexes in flight like a regular arrow does, or if it is just a straight projectile.
Well, and I've always thought they lost a little momentum downrange.
I think
too.
they do.
Yeah.
I think downrange it's probably not as much penetration, but
right.
up close
I think
it's probably
20 is
more.
that would be my guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, very interesting. Yours passed through with a lot of energy as
Right,
well.
a lot.
Good triangle-sized hole, Fatal Steel, pretty predictable. We've seen that interact with stuff. Yeah. And then SEVR 2.0 from Nick Cody. Shout out to Nick, by the way. Shot his first big game animal.
Oh, right on.
Held it together.
Nick.
Yeah, he held it together and made a shot. He was a fan of Joel. He's worked with an archery coach, shot his bow for a year and a half.
Cool.
And just kind of sent it to do this hunt and made a good shot. But dude, the entrance hole on the SEVR 2.0, I think he got an early deploy on the fur because the entrance hole was like 3 or 4 fingers wide. It was that wide and maybe that thick. Like you could almost stuff 4 fingers into it. So 2-blade cut, big entrance hole, big exit hole, also went through with a lot of energy. So again, just another good, clean shot.
You'll see holes like that. Like Rage does that frequently too, and I think it's largely because the tip's farther away from the blade.
Yep.
And when you're doing a 2-blade instead of a 3-blade, and the tip's not super sharp, it stretches the hide before it cuts it.
Okay.
Whereas like your both of your Grim Reapers, the tip's super sharp.
Yes.
Right.
So as that tip's going in, it's cutting the hide, not the blade. So you'll run it. You won't get as big of a hole with something like a Grim Reaper, just because it's not taking as much force up in the hide. So your SEVR or your Rage would do a very similar thing. I've shot lots of stuff with the Rage back in the hypodermic plus Ps, tripans, etc. And yeah, your hole looked like you could put your hand in it, but your penetration was a lot worse.
Yep.
On a bigger animal.
Yep.
So which is why I don't think the Grim Reapers. I don't think you really lose penetration on them because that tip's so sharp.
I would say definitely a stronger candidate for a bigger animal. But talking bear specifically, what are you going to shoot? Do you know?
I'll decide tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean. I made my decision basically on the ride up.
Yeah.
And I had another arrow in the quiver that was the Carnivore. That would have been my second bear. Had I pursued a second bear up there, I would have shot the Carnivore through it. But I was happy with one good-sized bear. The bear I shot was a nice-sized sow. And I was pretty happy just to like kind of help be a camp hand and help run cameras. And yeah, I got a good bear, so I was happy to be done there.
Yeah,
And,
I was very pleased.
I didn't feel the need for a second bear. Plus, can still go hunt Idaho a little bit.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, at a certain point, you're gonna have so much meat. It's like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think logistically, this would be interesting. I would want to know this is coming back through the U.S. border was pretty clean. The guide, Brian, did a great job having us prepared with all the paperwork we needed. So we had the paper trail when we showed up. And then basically you just declare what you're coming through with. They'll bring you in. You'll fill out a sheet and declare what you're coming through the border with. But as long as you had your paperwork and everything in order, it was very straightforward. It maybe took us an extra 10 minutes. They were cordial. They were helpful. And it was cool. You know, that was intimidating to me. I haven't done an international hunt.
I've never done it.
So they had a sample sheet. You know, he had us fill out what he could. Then he brought a sample sheet that was, marked up, and he says, "No, just follow this." So I mean, it was a lot easier, a lot simple, a lot, it was a lot better.
He just had you really well prepared for it.
Yep.
He did, which was nice because it was also his first year, so there's a lot for a guide to figure out logistically. But for that side of things, like, it was just nice to have all the ducks in a row.
Sure.
And especially after going through on the way up,
right?
A little more BPF. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming back.
What are you going to expect with a dead animal in the back of your rig?
Yeah. I mean, who knows, right?
Well, and that was the thing he asked. Do you have any skulls? Do you have any hide? And I said, I didn't keep mine. And he said the biggest problem, didn't he say, with migratory birds or something? He was saying that it's really. U.S.
He said for most of your standard big game, as long as you have your paper trail and everything in order, he said it's not too complicated, and it's always worth an extra phone call if you have questions or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I would like to get back up and do more stuff in Canada. I mean, Canada's got a lot to offer.
Sure.
Yeah, and I like any kind of that adventure style stuff where you're seeing a new area. It's a big sand. That kind of stuff really intrigues me.
So speaking of the new area, we talked about the Canadian Rockies, right, and how beautiful and gorgeous they were. And then the last turn we made to go to the camp, it was like going back home through our home, is Upper Peninsula, Michigan. The terrain was pretty similar. You didn't see the mountains, but it was a lot of poplar, aspen, and
it kind of flattens out. You come out of the mountains, you flatten out, and it literally could have been where we grew up in Michigan.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Kind of very similar vibe.
Cool.
So. Yeah, man, it was cool. I hope you get to get up there and.
Yeah, assuming my passport shows up.
What about Idaho? You gonna do any? Do you do any other bear stuff?
I haven't gotten out yet, but I did. Oh, that was technical difficulties by the pooch.
Yeah.
I bought 2 bear tags, and I haven't gone out yet. I almost always will buy what's available for me, knowing that it's going back. regardless whether I go or not.
Yep.
But I do intend on getting out here pretty soon. We'll see how this goes and see how much time I got on my plate. I mean, I keep looking at my weekends and they keep getting full. I got a graduation party for my daughter with her master's. I've got a wedding. I'm drawing a blank.
Life,
right now.
right?
I'm drawing a blank, but I know I have like 4 or 5 things. I started looking at my weekends and I'm like, where's an empty weekend here?
They get chewed up.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. To kind of recap all of our arrows that we shot through stuff, I was like 435 grains. Nick, Cody, very similar, about 435 grains. Both shooting 70-pound draw weight bows. Big mechanicals, flew right through. So, yeah, what's my takeaway from that? I don't think you need a big, heavy arrow to shoot through a light-skinned animal, particularly seeing the energy we both went through with.
Sure.
Carried through with a lot of energy. It wasn't like they just poked out the backside. They blew through.
Yeah.
So, my revision might be go wider. Go something that's going to create a little more hole. Because with bears, we want to be able to track them. We want to have a blood trail. And their hide can soak up a lot of that.
For sure. Yeah, your bigger hole, better off.
Well, and what I noticed with this bear, I mean, I've shot quite a few bears through the years. I was trying to think today when Tim and I were out how many bear I shot with the bow, before I couldn't shoot with the bow. Well, what really happened was I was using the bow and I had an opportunity to shoot the bear and I let a friend of mine videotape the bear the night before season, and the bear wouldn't come in close enough to shoot with the bow after that. And I said I like the meat more than the adrenaline rush, and I started using a gun. But I either shot 7 or 8 bear, with the bow.
Gotcha.
Before I started going to the rifle, and then, talking about the width of the cut and stuff like that. What I really noticed when Brian skinned out the bear was the amount of fat now compared to the fall of the year, because that's when we hunt back in Michigan. It starts September 10th, but the thickness of fat and it's more like a gelatin. I mean, it's thick. It's 2-3 inches thick. I mean, and it's soft. And there wasn't hardly any fat on these to speak
There's a little
of.
though. There's more than I'm used to seeing with our Idaho bears.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, considerably more.
Yeah.
Idaho bears typically this time of year, little to none.
Yeah, they've barely been awake.
Yeah, they've barely been awake, and they got to work a lot harder for their food, right? I think about that. They're working on steep stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
For sure. Burning more calories to try to get calories.
yeah, exactly.
That's not good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Well, what do you got? Anything else?
Yeah, things getting straightened up at the shop. We're definitely in a lull time right now down there. It's definitely quieter, but that always happens. Somewhere in May, it starts to warm up pretty good, and people just kind of scatter and go do what they're going to do. And then it doesn't tend to pick back up again until like July, right after 4th of July. Then it like lights off like fireworks,
Yeah.
And then we get really cranking, but it's getting things straightened away and cleaned up down there and organized. And, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and it's pretty exciting stuff. Looking forward to being able to spend more time doing this kind of stuff and not have it be so stressful.
Yeah.
So try to turn in a couple of tournaments before all the tournaments are gone, because I think it's time.
Are you
Spend
a
some more time.
spot and stalker? Or are you a bait?
Depends on what we're doing.
Yeah.
I do all of it. I spot and stalk mule deer and antelope. Elk, I'll usually try to sit over a food source or water hole if I can and be patient and wait. Tend to be more effective that way. And calling anymore for me hasn't done nearly as good as it used to. It's like it's almost a deterrent. So, but I've done a ton of spot and stalk in my life. And to me, it's the environment and whatever I've got the best chance to be effective at. Most of my hunting up by my property is sitting and waiting. You just sit in a good spot and you wait. And you be patient, and you may have to do it for 4 or 5 days, but it should work out.
And you set yourself up a really sweet, comfortable blind, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I found that it's bad when you look at it, because it feels like you're being just lazy. But if you're if you're comfortable, you're less likely to fidget. If you're comfortable, you're less likely to get twitchy. So if you can get yourself the most comfortable chair you can have, you're more likely to sit longer and quieter and make less noise. So I buy these extra large Easy Glider lounge chairs. It's the quietest thing I've ever found. Like it's for like camping and laying back and taking a nap. But out of everything I've tried, it's the quietest, most comfortable thing. And you can sit there for a really long time and you're not like constantly, like sitting in this, I'm moving around more than I would in the other chair. So I try to limit my movement and limit my noise as much as possible. So if that means I'm super comfy, then I'm super comfy in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had a great hunt, man. I was really happy to have done that. And Brian was cool. I haven't done an outfitted hunt, but I've been around some of those situations. And Brian felt more like a friend than someone who was telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. Like working as a team, not necessarily like, hey, this is what you're doing.
That's cool.
And had all of his X's and O's together. It was cool. So thank you, Brian, for doing that and having your stuff together. It was a fun hunt for me. I got to be a part of the baiting. I got to be a part of the whole process. And yeah, man, I'm excited. I hope you get up and do it. And we'll have a story from you in an episode or two, maybe.
Yeah, the only guided experience I've had was I went to Texas a couple of times with manufacturers that like paid your way to go on a thing. And then my dad went on a guided cougar hunt and took me with him. And that was a lot of sitting in a truck waiting. So it's like that's my only guided experiences I've had. So this will be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Hoping my passport shows up. Says it's supposed to be here, but I sure haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess my thing, Twin Valley, I've never done an outfitted hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very happy with Twin Valley and Brian and to consider that this is his fledgling start. I mean, what's it going to be in 5 years?
Yeah, it sounds like he's really got his ducks in a row
They
for
do.
a new thing.
1,800 square miles of huntable DMU up there.
It's a lot.
It's a big chunk of land, yeah.
big chunk of land.
Under his contract.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, he said the hardest part is just getting the licenses and it's not the resident licenses that's hard. It's for the non-resident licenses. And so he said he only had, what did he have, 6 and stuff. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, kudos to Twin Valley and Brian.
Yeah. It was an interesting, big experience. I think that's a wrap on the pod, hey?
Well, that fire's just about out.
Fire's out, man.
Sounds like it.
Fire's out. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe to this channel. Yeah. This is the podcast channel now.
Yeah, we let it go early, and you guys aren't subscribing as much as you're supposed to. Get on it already.
And leave it a review if you listen on audio, and hang out for the next couple of episodes. I think we're going to have some cool stories from Josh and more archery nuggets to share, a couple hunts. I still got an Idaho tag to fill. It's going to be cool.
Good times.
Yeah. That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Not too scary, huh, Pa?
No.